We saw each other last year.
Hello. Of course. Yes. Full of friends and stuff.
Likewise, Carol, friends. Good to see you.
It's been 42 degrees. It's nice.
Yesterday, here was like perfect. So this is cold weather for you.
No, it's still just good. Usually the summer is when it's hot, but
But you have the sea and the ocean.
those days we don't feel that. It's just
She works at the tapping shop.
yes, but now she's essentially in the
Europe is very small.
Hello, good morning everyone. Could we start taking our seats? Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, I'd like to start because all of our speakers have to leave quite promptly, so I'd really like you to take your seats now, please. Thank you very, very much. So I'd like to welcome everyone who's made the effort to come to Strasbourg for this event. Thank you very, very much, everyone in the room, but also the people who are joining online. Thank you also very much. This event is being live streamed. We're also going to record it so that it will be available after the event online. If any of our speakers really don't want to be in that recording, please could they let us know and we can edit it. For your information, there is this conference will be conducted in English. There is interpretation into French and Ukrainian, both online and in the room. So for this opening session, I'm very, very happy to say that we have more than two, in fact, very distinguished guests. So we have first the Maltese chairmanship of the Committee of Ministers, represented here in the room by the distinguished Ambassador Francesca Camilleri-Vettiger. And we're also later going to hear an address from the Maltese Minister of Justice. The reason, just a brief explanation about the order in which we're hearing the speakers. The speakers who are here in the room have to run off for the Committee of Ministers meeting, so we're a bit breaking protocol and giving them priority. We're also got the presence here of our strategic partner for help, and also generally for the Council of Europe, and particularly our cooperation projects, the European Union. And we have here Ambassador Vesna Kos, who's in fact always available and present in our key events. So thank you very, very much for that. And last but by no means least, our Distinguished Director General of Human Rights and the Rule of Law, who's also kindly agreed to deliver a welcome speech. So, without further ado, Francesca, would you like to kick us off? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Director General Esposito, Ambassador Cos, esteemed colleagues and distinguished participants, it's both a pleasure and an honor to address you today at the 2025 HELP Network Annual Conference, an annual milestone that not only marks the continued growth of the Council of Europe's flagship HELP program, but also reflects its far-reaching, transformative impact across our continent and beyond. And let me begin by conveying Malta's sincere appreciation to the HELP Secretariat and to the Directorate General of Human Rights and Rule of Law for their unwavering and indispensable commitment to this very successful and forward-looking initiative of the Council of Europe, which as Presidency of the Committee of Ministers, we are very proud to be supporting today. HELP is a living testament to a key truth, that protecting human rights is not only a duty of institutions, but a daily responsibility by individuals, by yourselves, by judges, by prosecutors, lawyers, educators, and defenders of justice, because you are the ones ensuring that the values of the European Convention on Human Rights are not distant ideals, but tangible guarantees. And it is thanks to your work that those rights become real for people and communities across Europe. Today, legal systems face immense pressure. Courts are overwhelmed, rights are politicized, and we are seeing a spread of disinformation and misinformation which is eroding public trust. And in this context, the HELP program acts as a stabilizing force, equipping legal professionals with the knowledge and confidence to apply the Convention in complex and evolving legal environments, to translate jurisprudence into practical guidance and transform training into lasting capacity building. Because HELP is not just a training program, it is a tool for resilience. With over 150,000 users, more than 60 courses in hundreds of language versions, and a presence in all 46 member states, it empowers legal professionals to uphold human rights amid growing complexity. HELP builds communities of practice, it harmonizes standards, and it bridges international obligations with national implementation. It educates and it also empowers. Rather than imposing a single model of justice, it enriches national legal cultures by embedding universal standards. It respects diversity while promoting coherence. And so whether one is a lawyer or a judge in Tallinn, a defense lawyer in Sarajevo, a prosecutor in Palermo, the rights of the individual remain the same. And the training is also the same, however, applied to that particular legal context. So, dear colleagues, Malta's presence and strong presence actually at this year's conference, as we have a big team from our Ministry for Justice, it demonstrates our collective resolve to place human rights education at the heart of the justice system. And this commitment is well reflected also in our presidency priorities. Together with the emphasis we continue to place on judicial training and in enhancing the efficiency and accessibility of our justice system. In fact, in a first-of-its-kind move, through our Ministry for Justice, Malta launched a pilot to synchronize the HELP e-learning platform with our national e-learning system. This integration will allow HELP courses hosted by the Council of Europe to be fully accessed directly via our national platform. And once fully implemented, this can also serve as a model for other member states. And a dedicated session, in fact, on this experience will be taking place tomorrow, and we look forward to sharing these insights and the lessons learned through this process. We're also proud to announce the upcoming launch of a new HELP course on quality of justice and the work of the CEPEJ, scheduled for October in Valletta, which is organized under the HELP in the EU4 project and in partnership with Malta's Judicial Studies Committee. This course will provide high-level training for EU judges and court staff on performance, efficiency, and trust in justice delivery. We continue to champion the protection of children's rights, and it's in fact one of our main priorities, and was reaffirmed just this week actually in Valletta when we held the first ever informal ministerial conference of ministers responsible for children's rights, which marked also the 15 years anniversary since the Lanzarote Convention entered into force. And we are proud and very supportive of all the powerful tools that HELP offers to support this mission, including courses on the protection of children from sexual exploitation and sexual abuse, and child-friendly justice, where we are also pleased to note that there is a strong and growing demand for this kind of training. Equality, inclusion and dignity remain pillars of our presidency, and with HELP's courses we see that there is a lot of support in this regard and vital tools on gender-based violence, anti-discrimination and victim support. And the newly updated anti-discrimination course, which will be presented later today, and the upcoming revision of the hate crime module are indeed very timely and welcome additions. We are also focused on the legal and ethical implications of rapid technological change. As we co-organize and support initiatives to fight cybercrime, like last month's Octopus conference, Malta remains committed to ensuring artificial intelligence and digital justice systems are operating within clear human rights frameworks. HELP's growing course catalogue on artificial intelligence, data protection and cybercrime meets this need with admirable foresight. We also remain firmly united with Ukraine, and we had, in fact, last week, the historic signing ceremony in the presence of President Zelensky of the agreement between the Council of Europe and Ukraine on the special tribunal, and here HELP's targeted training for Ukrainian legal professionals, which covers humanitarian law, displaced persons, deportation of children during armed conflict, and accountability also for war crimes, is not only urgent, but very essential. And our experience in integrating HELP nationally could also serve as a useful model for application in Ukraine, where interest in this approach is already very high, with over 20,000 Ukrainian users now active on the platform. Another key area where we believe HELP leads by example is cross-border judicial cooperation. The course on international cooperation in criminal matters, which is now available in 26 languages and used by over 5,500 participants, offers critical learning at a time when multilateral legal cooperation is more important than ever. And the upcoming opening for signature of the third additional protocol to the Convention on Mutual Assistance in Valletta will offer an opportunity also to update and expand this course even further. What makes HELP truly exceptional is not just its scale or sophistication, but its agility, its capacity to respond swiftly and meaningfully to new and emerging human rights challenges, demonstrated once again with the recent launch of 4 new courses addressing critical legal and societal issues. But HELP doesn't only educate, it also inspires. And in fact, and here I speak as the president of the Executive Committee of the North-South Center, the center's new HEY platform, which stands for Human Rights Education for Youth, drew inspiration from the HELP program, and it adapted this excellent model to engage young people, also in the southern Mediterranean and beyond, with the aim of ensuring that rights-based education begins early and spans generations and disciplines. And so I cannot but thank the HELP Secretariat for making this a reality to reach a new target audience. Because as they say, replication is the sincerest form of flattery. So well done. And with that, dear colleagues, I would like to conclude by thanking you for your commitment and for your dedication in contributing to and sustaining this very crucial program, to making sure also that it remains agile and it remains relevant. Through this vital initiative, you are not only defending the rule of law, but also forging and reinforcing the social contract that binds Europe together. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesca, and for all the support that Malta has been giving to the HELP project. John Luca, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Good morning, everybody. Madam President of the Ministers' Deputies, Ambassador Kos, members and partners of the Council of Europe HELP Network, Madam Vice President of the North Macedonian Bar Association, dear participants, I'm very pleased to welcome you all here in person and online to the annual HELP Network Conference. HELP is about 60 courses available in over 45 different languages, free of charge, across Europe and beyond. Over 150,000 professionals have been trained thanks to this course. This is just a few data to show you the relevance and the importance of the HELP courses. And the focus of this conference is twofold. First is to advance justice and human rights training and the impact of the health program across Europe and beyond. And secondly, to provide a platform for networking to enhance the protection of human rights and the rule of law. Let me begin by recalling, if it was still necessary, the context in which we are holding this year's conference. In the words of the Secretary General of the Council of Europe in his 2025 report towards a new democratic pact for Europe, and I quote, "Today, Europe faces a perfect storm. War, shifting geopolitics, democratic backsliding, rising impunity, climate crisis, disinformation, rapid technological changes, and a retreat from cooperation into nationalism and protectionism. All that threatens to undo the peace, stability, and hard-won progress the Council of Europe has helped shape across our entire continent for the past 75 years." And I end my quote. Tragically, one of the burning crises on our continent, the Russian Federation brutal aggression against Ukraine, persists in 2025. It continues to affect millions of lives, causing immense destruction, devastation, and sufferings to the Ukrainian people in and outside Ukraine. This will have a long-term impact on our continent and way beyond it. A dedicated session this afternoon will focus on the assistance provided to Ukraine by the Council of Europe, including the specific support provided to our partners in Ukraine through our Help in Ukraine project. For more than 75 years, the Council of Europe has remained a guiding light in preserving values of humanity and fundamental principles. It continues to offer concrete support against straying from these principles and against slipping further into the depths of war, autocracy, and repression. But how does training fit in all that? Well, simply put, it is one of the most effective ways of improving knowledge and developing the skills needed to apply international standards effectively at the national level. And in this context, HELP has become a widely sought-after tool for delivering systematic training on the European Convention on Human Rights, especially in cases involving persistent, structural, or complex national issues. Such targeted training have increased significantly in the past year, and we would like to see this growth continue. This morning, we will have the honor of welcoming Judge Arfin Borsen, who is the Vice President of the European Court of Human Rights. He will deliver a keynote speech on, and the title is The Convention at 75, Instrument of Peace, Compass for the Future. Training is one of the key tools for contributing to greater compliance with the European Convention on Human Rights requirement. And this is why the Council of Europe, through numerous cooperation initiatives and the HELP program, focuses on training key actors at the forefront of defending human rights at the national level. However, HELP will be nowhere if it were not for the Member States' commitment, in fact, your commitment and the institutions that you represent, to integrating human rights training in the curricula of the relevant professionals. While our Member States are naturally our primary focus, the Council of Europe is not about geographical boundaries. It is about the values that we share, and it is therefore only natural that HELP extends beyond the borders of our Member States. And on this note, I'm grateful for the warm welcome that HELP has received in regions beyond Europe, in particular the South Mediterranean and Central Asia. In fact, interest in the HELP courses goes even further than that, because we have also received requests for support from countries based in South America and in Asia. Later today, my colleague, Anna Maria Telvis, who is the head of the HELP program, and their team will tell you more about the accomplishments of the past year, and I would like you to engage very much with them also to help shape the next courses. Now, these achievements are only possible thanks to all of your commitment, the invaluable support of the European Union, as my colleague Claire mentioned earlier, and the outstanding cooperation that we have with national judicial training institutions and bar councils. But also the digitalization, which has been an integral part of HELP expansion and relevance. So in closing, let me thank all of you for being here, both in person and online, and I would really like to help specifically my HELP team colleagues for their continued efforts, the creative approach, and for all the work they put together, not only for organizing this event, but also for running the HELP courses throughout the year. So thank you very much, Claire. Thank you, everybody, and I wish everyone a successful event. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gianluca. And so, without further ado, please, Ambassador Koz.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair of the Committee of Ministers, Director General, dignitaries, participants, good morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity to contribute also to this year conference of the Help Network and to add few words from the perspective of the European Union. The health projects that are currently being implemented, as well as those that have been recently concluded, are a testimony of the long-standing and, as you said, Madam Chair, strategic cooperation between the European Union and the Council of Europe. Judicial training on fundamental rights is crucial for building justice systems where the founding values of the rule of law, democracy and equality are respected. Under the rule of law mechanism, the European Commission works to uphold well-functioning, efficient and fully independent justice system. The HELP programme is an important strand of training of EU national justice professionals on the rule of law and fundamental rights that the European Union continues to support also financially in numerous contexts, and I will mention three. First, EU national justice practitioners are essential actors ensuring the effective application of the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, and they benefit from dedicated training on the application of the Charter and its interplay with the European Convention on Human Rights. And that is exactly what the HELP programme provides, and this is exactly what is even more important to mention in this year of important anniversaries for both instruments. Second, the European Commission is now working on the next European judicial training strategy, the adoption of which is expected in November 2025. It will have a strong focus on digitalization, the focus that is also important through HELP and mentioned by Director General, creating a supportive environment for digitalization of justice systems. We welcome HELP courses, that HELP courses can contribute to strengthening the digital capacity of justice professionals. We hope that the HELP programme will contribute with its activities in the years to come to assist professionals facing the challenges of digitalization, including the opportunities and risks it will bring to the human rights and fundamental freedoms. And finally, third, we welcome very much the cooperation on the Help in Ukraine project to specifically support justice professionals in Ukraine. That was also mentioned by the Madam Chair of the Committee of Ministers. Finally, let me underline the importance we attach to the network of HELP focal points and today's conference. The network of HELP focal points is crucial to make sure that the EU funding aimed at supporting training of justice professionals is used strategically to catalyze training initiatives at the national level, thereby maximizing its leverage effect. So we are looking forward to continue supporting the network, and I wish you the very successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vesna, and thank you so much for all the support that the European Union gives to us for this project. So now some of our speakers have to leave. But we're very happy now to be able to have a message, an online message from the Minister of Justice and Reform of the Construction Sector of Malta, Mr. Jonathan Attar. We can't hear the sound though. Can someone start it again?
The need to uphold the Council of Europe's core values. Distinguished guests, it's an honor and privilege to address this year's HELP Network Conference held under the auspices of the Maltese Presidency of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. As Malta undertakes this pivotal role amid unprecedented global uncertainty, the need to uphold the Council of Europe's core values, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, becomes more prevalent. Our presidency, which coincides with the 60th anniversary of Malta's accession to the Council of Europe, is guided by clear priorities that resonate deeply with those core values and with the opportunity to shape a more just and inclusive Europe. The Maltese presidency highlights the importance of protecting children while tackling issues such as violence, discrimination, and hate speech, especially in relation to harmful online content. A key focus is on empowering youth, recognizing them as a vital agent of change and ensuring their meaningful participation in democratic processes. We also express strong solidarity with Ukraine amid its ongoing struggles, emphasizing the importance of peace and justice. Above all, under this framework, the Maltese presidency reiterates the Council's dedication to advancing human rights and democracy, working towards a stronger Europe where these values are realized for everyone. The mandate of the Help Network program is fundamentally significant in advancing human rights and democratic principles. Building on diverse declarations and European conventions, the Help program highlights the connection between the training of legal professionals and the application of human rights principles within the national context of countries that are signatories to the European Convention of Human Rights. As a signatory nation, we collectively bear the respective and responsibility of upholding the principle of subsidiarity, underscoring the primary obligation for the guarantee and protection of human rights, residing with national authorities, including governments, judicial systems, and legislative bodies. To fulfill this responsibility, we need to ensure that our institutions are equipped with professionals proficient in upholding and preventing violation of human rights, and that our justice institutions provide effective domestic legal remedies to address such violations. To achieve the desired outcomes, the provision of professional and timely education is essential. Professional education is instrumental in preventing human rights violations by imparting knowledge of the principle and standards outlined in the Convention, as well as the jurisprudence of the European Court of Human Rights. By comprehending these frameworks, national authorities and legal practitioners are better positioned to ensure compliance and avert breaches. Furthermore, the effective implementation of the Convention at the national level is largely contingent upon the knowledge and competencies of those entrusted with its application, including national authorities, legal professionals, and civil servants. Importantly, the obligation to uphold the Convention necessitates a shared responsibility between state parties and the court. These underscore the critical relationship between the training of justice professionals and the rule of law. By prioritizing enhancements in this training, it is possible to establish a more robust foundation for justice systems that are equitable, impartial, and effective, ultimately improving the overall integrity of our legal institutions. Public legal education is essential for fostering trust in the justice system, as it helps citizens understand their legal and human rights, as well as the available remedies for protecting them. An informed population regarding justice and human rights serves as the best safeguard for upholding the rule of law, empowering individuals to hold domestic institutions accountable. This vigilance is crucial in preventing complacency in the face of human rights violations. Malta is adopting a people-centered approach to justice to enhance access to justice at all levels, building on the foundations laid by the HELP network and in cooperation with HELP and other renowned providers of justice education. We are about to launch an educational platform that provides professional training for both the Maltese justice professionals and the general public. The values guiding this new platform resonate with the guiding principles of HELP and the Council of Europe, namely access to justice through the provision of high-quality professional education content, support to continuous professional development to justice professionals, students and other professionals working in the justice sector, and the strengthening of the rule of law through open and free access to information. In concluding this address, I wish to acknowledge the significant contribution of the HELP network in their essential role of protecting and promoting human rights. Their work serves as a reminder of the ongoing commitment required from each of us to uphold the values that we cherish. It is evident that knowledge is an invaluable asset capable of shaping the future of our democracies, reinforcing our institutions, protecting human rights, and sustaining the rule of law. The Maltese presidency takes pride in contributing to this initiative and encourages all member states to participate actively in the endeavor to cultivate a Europe that embodies our shared democratic principles.
Thank you very much. So now we have a message from a member of the HELP Consultative Board. The HELP Consultative Board is made up of members of judicial training institutions and bar associations from, at the moment, Italy, Spain, Ukraine, Romania, Turkey, Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, North Macedonia, with 2 associate members from Bulgaria. This consultative board are extremely committed, extremely active, and they really help us to ensure that the content that we're providing through the HELP programme remains relevant and useful for lawyers in the countries concerned. And we're very happy here to have today with us Jelena Ristic, who's the Vice President of the North Macedonia Bar Association and a member of the HELP Consultative Board. Please.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, dear friends, good morning. It is truly a great pleasure for me to be here today, and I'm honored and grateful for the opportunity to address on behalf of the HELP Consultative Board at this important conference. A forum, I would say, where the shared values of human dignity, rule of law and justice have come to life, not only in theory, but in practice as well. We gather at a time when human rights face increasing challenges across Europe and beyond. In such a context, the role of the Council of Europe and its human rights education for legal professionals, namely its HELP program, has never been more essential. Actually, I would say that the HELP program is more than just a program. It is the cornerstone of legal capacity building across Council of Europe's 46 member states and beyond. It equips judges, lawyers, prosecutors, and other professionals with practical tools to apply the European Convention on Human Rights and other key human rights instruments in their daily work. The unique strength of the HELP program lies in its grounding, mainly in the case law of the European Court of Human Rights, and its emphasis on practical, interactive training tailored to national legal systems. It builds bridges, not only between Strasbourg and national capitals, but also between legal theory on one hand and the day-to-day courtroom reality on the other hand. Why is HELP indispensable? Because human rights protection does not become reality through legal texts alone. It is realized when a vulnerable woman finds protection against domestic violence, when a refugee is treated with dignity, when a child receives a child-friendly justice. When legal professionals are empowered to uphold those rights with knowledge, confidence, and consistency. The HELP program ensures that legal professionals understand the evolving standards of the European Court of Human Rights and how to apply them in their jurisdictions. It creates not only a community of learners, but also a network of defenders of the convention system at the same time. The HELP network, our growing, vibrant alliance of national training institutions and bar associations, together with its partners, is, I would say, HELP's greatest asset. Together, we have reached thousands of legal professionals, translated HELP courses into over 40 languages, and ensured context-specific implementation. These achievements are not abstract. They manifest in more robust legal decisions, better protection of human rights, and a deeper public trust in judicial systems. Each trained professional becomes a multiplier in the sense that it is taking the values of the convention into their courts, into their offices, into their societies in general. The coordination of this vast network with all its linguistic, legal, and institutional diversity is a very complex undertaking. But thanks to the commitment and expertise of the HELP team, this work is carried out with consistency, inclusivity, and quality. As we look to the future, the HELP program must continue to evolve to meet new challenges. Namely, digital transformation must continue to be embraced, not only to expand the reach of training, but to continue to integrate various technological issues into our curricula. In addition, interdisciplinary collaboration is crucial as well. Legal professionals must work alongside psychologists, medical professions, social workers in cases involving vulnerable populations, while HELP can foster the cross-sectoral competence. Finally, resilience and adaptability are also very important. Whether responding to crises such as war, migration, or pandemics, HELP must remain a flexible tool in the hands of national partners, capable of rapid deployment and relevant support. And let us also remain ambitious. The HELP model, while European in its origin, has global potential. We are already working with countries beyond Europe, and this outreach should grow. Namely, the principles of the Convention belong to all humanity, and HELP can be a vehicle for their global promotion. Let me close with this thought. Legal professionals are the guardians of justice. But even the most committed guardians need tools, need training, need solidarity. HELP provides all of this. As a member of the HELP Consultative Board, on behalf of the board, I reaffirm our commitment to advancing HELP's mission, not only for the protection of human rights in Europe, but for the protection of peace, democracy, and rule of law everywhere they are needed. And last but not least, of course, in this regard, I would also like to extend sincere appreciation to the HELP team for their vision, their competence, and their hard work, always hard work behind the scenes to make this mission possible. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Yelena, for those inspiring words and for the kind words to my well-deserving colleagues, and for the commitment and the hard work that you and the other board members have also put in this last couple of years. Thank you so much. So now we can just have a few minutes break while we wait for our keynote speaker to take his place. And thank you very much to the speakers for the opening session. So we are indeed extremely honoured this morning to have as the keynote speaker for this HELP conference Judge Arfin Bardsen, who is the Vice President of the European Court of Human Rights. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you indeed, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure as Vice President of the European Court of Human Rights for me to deliver this year's keynote speech at the annual conference of the HELP Network. We gather at a time when the democratic security architecture that has long underpinned our continent is being shaken by a convergence of complex and unprecedented and overlapping challenges. Europe faces escalating geopolitical tensions, war on its soil, mounting environmental emergencies, the climate crisis is deepening. The rapid advancement of biotechnology and artificial intelligence, alongside with proliferation of mass surveillance technologies, raises serious concerns about privacy, accountability, and democratic oversight. Terrorism and migration continue to test the resilience of our societies and call for adjusted long-term solutions. These pressures are compounded by a troubling erosion of public trust in institutions, the resurgence of authoritarian tendencies, and increasing threats to judicial independence. Across many countries, we are witnessing a decline of democratic standards, commonly referred to as democratic backsliding, driven by rising nationalism and populism. Taking together, these developments are putting our institutions, our values, and the very foundation for the European project to the test. It is in such times that we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the European Convention on Human Rights. It was opened for signature in Rome, 4th November 1950, and entered into force the 3rd September 1953. It was in this anniversary year, marked also by the continuation of the war in Ukraine for the 4th year, that the European Court of Human Rights has received the Dresden Peace Prize for its special contribution to peace and international understanding. An important recognition of the Court's work and a strong statement of support for the idea of European human rights law and the institutions that serve it. Ladies and gentlemen, the convergence of this anniversary, the ongoing crisis we face, and the award offers a fitting moment to remember that the Convention was conceived as an instrument of peace and stability, and to recall its origins, its core values, and constitutive components, which is then my first issue. Both the Council of Europe and the Convention represent Europe's moral and legal response to the horrors of the Second World War and the threat of totalitarianism. They reflect the determination of Europe's post-war leaders that such horrors, particularly the grave human rights violations, especially those committed by authoritarian regimes, should never again be repeated. Indeed, the atrocities, the brutality, and the suffering experienced during the Second World War were only possible because the emergence of totalitarianism that gradually erased human dignity, suppressed democratic principles, and led to the collapse of the rule of law had not been halted in time. The idea behind the Convention was as simple as it was profound. By effectively protecting human rights, the rule of law, and democracy, Europe could also ensure lasting peace. This remains the guiding star, as confirmed by Europe's heads of state and governments in 2023 Reykjavik Declaration, titled United Around Our Values. In the Reykjavik Declaration, the member states of the Council of Europe reaffirm their commitments under the European Convention on Human Rights based on the principle of subsidiarity and shared responsibility. They reaffirm their support to the European Court of Human Rights, and they firmly and repeatedly underlined their responsibility to combat autocratic tendencies and growing threats to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. These three are, the declaration says, the bedrock of continued freedom, peace, prosperity, and security for Europe. The Convention was the first internationally binding instrument to transform certain rights from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights into binding legal obligations on states. But the Convention went a step further to ensure these obligations were not merely symbolic, but concrete and enforceable. The Convention established an international oversight mechanism based on the right of individual application, a kind of early warning system meant to raise the alarm in the event of resurgence of totalitarianism. For the first time in history, the supervisory mechanism allowed individuals to bring proceedings against states before an international forum, a revolutionary concept at the time and a major milestone in the protection of human rights in Europe and beyond. Equally remarkable was the fact that by accepting this mechanism, the contracting states implicitly acknowledged the need for a remedy outside their borders. From the tragic experience of the Second World War, they had learned that some form for external review was required, as unchecked power, even when democratically attributed, could stray into autocracy and tyranny. Over the years, the Convention system became not only the most advanced and effective international mechanism for enforcing human rights, but also the most far-reaching system of international justice. Important procedural reforms have been implemented via protocols and improved working methods. New rights have been introduced by amendments to the Convention, for example, on the abolishing of the death penalty. Two general features of the Convention mechanism as developed by the Court deserve particular mentioning. First, through its interpretation of the Convention as a living instrument, which guarantees the rights that are not theoretical and illusory, but practical and effective, the Court made the Convention applicable to new realities that were unforeseeable or unimaginable at the time it was adopted, including issues related to new technology, bioethics, or climate change. And the Court has kept the Convention aligned with the present-day values of the European liberal democracies. Indeed, the Court has time and again reiterated that any interpretation of the rights and freedoms guaranteed has to be consistent with the general spirit of the Convention, an instrument designed to maintain and promote the ideals and values of a democratic society. Moreover, it has made clear that since the Convention is first and foremost a system for the protection of human rights, the Court must have regard to the changing conditions in contracting states and respond, for example, to an evolving convergence as to the standards to be achieved. A failure by the Court to maintain a dynamic and evolutive approach would risk rendering it a bar to reform and improvement. Second, in the last recital of the preamble to the European Convention on Human Rights, it is confirmed that in accordance with the principle of subsidiarity, the high contracting parties have the primary responsibility to secure the rights and freedoms defined in the Convention and the protocols thereto, and in doing so, they enjoy a margin of appreciation, subject to the supervisory jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights established by this Convention. This recital was added by Protocol number 15 to the Convention as enforced from 2021. However, the principle of subsidiarity mentioned therein is not new. Far from. Subsidiarity has been an integral part of the Convention machinery from the very start. Adding it to the preamble to the Convention, nevertheless, feeds into the increased importance of this governing principle for the shared responsibility between the Member States, the Court, and the Committee of Ministers. The overall importance of the subsidiarity principle was confirmed by the Member States, again in the Reykjavik Declaration from 2023. Moreover, the connection between this principle and the notion of shared responsibility was reiterated. Accordingly, in this declaration, it's underlined the importance of the principle of subsidiarity and the margin of appreciation for the implementation of the Convention at the national level by the high contracting parties, reinforced by the entry into force of Protocol 15, as well as the notion of shared responsibility between the high contracting parties, the Court and the Committee of Ministers, to ensure the proper functioning of the convention system. One may thus see the subsidiarity principle and the notion of shared responsibility as expression of the inherent allocation of duties and competences under the Convention. More generally, there should be no doubt that the Convention has profoundly shaped the constitutional landscape of the continent, becoming the most important legal and political common denominator of the European states. A shared set of values that binds together different cultures and legal traditions into a single legal space encompassing nearly 700 million people. It has become, as the Court has called it, a constitutional instrument of European public order. The Court has had on a number of occasions the opportunity to explore the key components in this respect, emphasizing in particular democracy and the rule of law as the very bedrock of the convention system. For example, in Sadanuka versus Latvia, the Court said as following, and I quote, "Democracy constitutes a fundamental element of the European public order. That is apparent firstly from the preamble to the Convention, which establishes a very clear connection between the Convention and democracy by stating that the maintenance and further realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms are best ensured on one hand by an effective political democracy and on the other a common understanding and observance of human rights. The preamble goes on to affirm that European countries have a common heritage of political traditions, ideals, freedom, and the rule of law, and this common heritage consists in the underlying values of the Convention. Thus, the Court has pointed out on many occasions that the Convention was in fact designed to maintain and promote the ideals and values of a democratic society. In other words, democracy is the only political model contemplated by the Convention, and accordingly, the only one compatible with it. It is noteworthy in this judgment, and in numerous others, how the Court conceptually connects democracy with the rule of law. Central to this are foreseeability, guarantees against abuse of power and arbitrariness, equality before the law, and access to independent courts. It is also fundamental that in a liberal democracy, the majority's impact will always have to be limited by the requirements of the rule of law. Politics must operate within the limits of the law. In the Verein Klimaseniorin, the Court moreover made clear that judicial intervention cannot replace or provide any substitute for the legislative and executive branches of government. At the same time, the Court recalled that democracy cannot be reduced to the will of the majority of the electorate and elected representatives in disregard of the requirements of the rule of law. And it went on to reiterate that the remit of domestic courts and the European Court of Human Rights itself is complementary to those democratic processes. The task of the judiciary, the Court stated, is to ensure the necessary oversight of compliance with legal requirements. Let me at this juncture add that any judicial control function must be used with realism, prudence, moderation, and pertinent deference to the democratic decision-making process. In addition, judges and courts must tolerate criticism and an open discussion on how the interaction between political and judicial authorities in a rule of law perspective can be optimized. The difficulties arise if one does not recognize the very vision that the rule of law limits the majority and the dominant political currents at any given time. A lack of understanding of this basic mechanism seems to be spreading. We also see, a little too often, I'm afraid, that judges and courts, whether national or international, are exposed to attacks, sanctions, pressure, or disrespect simply because they are doing their job. That their legitimacy and motives are questioned, that judges who protect the rule of law against populist majority are declared enemies of the people, that judicial decisions are not respected by the other branches of government. All this undermines confidence in the national and international legal order by calling into question the authority and relevance of the law itself. This is very dangerous not only for the minorities, but for everyone. This brings me to the second main element of my speech, namely war and conflict. Despite our best efforts, conflicts still arise, and wars do break out, thus remaining a tragic and persistent element of human history. The drafters of the Convention understood this reality, but refused to follow the old Latin proverb, inter arma enim silent leges, in times of war, the law falls silent. On the contrary, Article 15 of the Convention explicitly recognizes that human rights continue to apply in times of war, subject only to strictly construed derogations. The Court itself has repeatedly affirmed, in line with the case law also of the International Court of Justice, that even in situation of international armed conflict, the safeguards under the Convention continues to apply, albeit interpreted against the background of the provision of international humanitarian law. In such times, the focus shifts from preventing war to containing its horrors, to limiting its atrocities, and to ensuring accountability. The Court's judgment in cases involving armed conflicts in northern Cyprus, in the Caucasus, or in Ukraine confirm that state must conduct military operations in a way that respects human dignity and that minimizes harm to civilians. This is absolutely basic. Experience also shows that the Convention can play an important role in the transition from conflict to peace. Examples of these are the post-conflict solutions for Northern Ireland, the Good Friday Agreement from 1998, and the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the Dayton Agreement 1995. I would add that the Court has examined or is currently examining cases in connection with both these peace agreements. Most recently, on 26 June this year, the Grand Chamber delivered the operative provisions of its judgment in the case of Kovacevic versus Bosnia and Herzegovina, which concerns the country electoral system. The Court held in this case that the applicant had abused the right of application and that he lacked victim status. A case brought by Ireland against the United Kingdom concerning legislation of amnesty for murders and ill treatment during the years of conflict in Northern Ireland remains pending before the Court. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine since 24 February 2024 is the biggest blow ever to the Council of Europe's idea and to the values and goals of the Convention. Russia ceased to be a party to the Convention with effect from 16 September of the same year. This was inevitable, but with the unfortunate effect that more than 140 million people lost the legal protection under the Convention overnight. It has been clarified by the Court that Russia remains responsible for any violations of the Convention that took place up until this point. And it has been clarified that the Court remains competent to hear complaints about such matters. This applies even though Russia has completely failed to participate in the proceedings before the Court ever since it ceased to be a party to the Convention. In 2024, the Court handed down judgments in 2 interstate cases against Russia, namely in Ukraine versus Russia concerning Crimea, and in Georgia versus Russia, number 4. Both judgments are milestones when it comes to Russia's serious and systematic violations of human rights of civilians in the aforementioned neighboring states. The case of Ukraine and the Netherlands versus Russia concerns the conflict in eastern Ukraine since 2014, the downing of a civilian airliner carrying a large number of Dutch passengers, and the ongoing full-scale invasion of Ukraine since 2022. It has been announced that the judgment will be delivered on the 9th July, that is next week. In April 2025, the Court communicated the case of Ukraine versus Russia, number 9, which concerns alleged targeted assassinations by Russian agents of perceived opponents of the Council of Europe member states outside armed conflict. In addition to these interstate cases, there are more than 5,700 individual complaints related to Russia's military operations on Ukrainian soil. I will mention one in particular. In February this year, the Court communicated the case of Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union on behalf of 10 Ukrainian children versus Russia, which concerns Ukrainian children placed in institution in Crimea and allegedly subjected to forced imposition of Russian nationality and adoption by Russian families. The court gives high priority to cases against Russia, notably to the conflict-related cases. There are in particular 3 reasons for this. Firstly, to clarify important issues in the context of aggression and war, particularly those concerning jurisdiction and the application of humanitarian law. Secondly, the court's judgment, through objective, authoritative, and thorough findings of fact, will serve as a valuable documentation of history of what happened. And thirdly, the court's judgment, to the extent that the established violations, will help to confirm Russia's responsibility. This is important now and for the future. The court's work in this field is part of a larger context. Other components are inter alia the establishment of the War Damage Register, where Ukrainians can report damage caused by Russian warfare. Active efforts are also being made in cooperation between the Council of Europe, the European Union, and the Ukrainian authorities to establish a special tribunal to prosecute crimes of aggression. This brings me to the third part of my speech today, the court's activities in the past year. First, very briefly, some statistics. In 2024, the court ruled on nearly 37,000 applications in total. More than 22,000 applications were decided by the court sitting in a single judge formation. Committees of 3 judges decided on close to 14,000 applications, and they delivered more than 800 judgments in respect of over 10,000 applications. Chambers of 7 judges delivered 283 judgments in respect of 579 applications and declared inadmissible or struck out 189 applications. As of 1st July this year, the court had 60,200 pending applications. This is a slight decrease compared to the end of the year figures for last year. Approximately 3/4 of the pending applications concern 5 countries. Turkey, with around 21,000 applications, the Russian Federation with around 8,000 applications, Ukraine with approximately 7,300 applications, and then Romania and Poland with 3,650 and 2,850 applications, respectively. Over the past years, the Grand Chamber of the Court delivered 3 judgments and 1 decision. In Pinto Mulla versus Spain, the court examined the case of a Jehovah's Witness who received a blood transfusion during emergency surgery despite her express advanced refusal. The Grand Chamber found a violation of Article 8 in light of Article 9, and for the first time addressed how the state's obligations to safeguard the life and physical integrity of patients and to respect their personal autonomy were to be reconciled in emergency medical situations. The court recognized that the member states enjoyed a margin of application in respect of the design of the relevant domestic regulatory framework. But the court also made clear the need for the member states to secure that their own practice in reality complies with this framework. In Fabri and others versus San Marino, the court dealt with complaints arising from 2 sets of criminal proceedings in which the applicants, acting as injured parties, saw no investigative steps taken, resulting in the charges becoming time-barred. The applicants complained that due to the authorities' inaction, they could not have their civil claims adjudicated in the criminal proceedings. The court found no violations of the right of access to a court, concluding that the applicants retained other avenues for their civil claims. The case of ships waste oil collector BV and others versus the Netherlands concerned the transmission and use in unrelated competition law proceedings of data lawfully obtained through telephone tapping in the context of criminal investigation. The court found no violation of Article 8 and clarified the principles applicable to the transmission of lawfully intercepted data between state authorities. And lastly, the case of Mansouri versus Italy concerned confinement of a Tunisian national on board of an Italian cruise ship responsible for returning him to Tunisia on the basis of an order of Italian authorities refusing him entry into Italy. The court declared the application inadmissible because of non-exhaustion of domestic remedies. Yet, It also confirms this case law that states remain responsible for acts occurring on ships flying their flag and clarified the nature of effective remedies required under Article 5. The Grand Chamber also had hearings in a number of still pending cases. I will mention the hearing held on 18 December last year in the case of Danier versus Romania, which concerns disciplinary sanctions imposed on a judge for posting 2 messages on his Facebook page. I also recall the hearings that were held in 12 February 2025 in 3 so-called pushback cases against Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland concerning the treatment of migrants at the Belarusian border. There was also a hearing in February 2025 in the case of Tsava and others versus Georgia, which concerns the dispersal of major protests in June 2019 from the front of the parliament building in Tbilisi. And we had a hearing on 7 May in Yasak versus Turkey, which concerns measures taken against alleged members of an armed terrorist organization suspected to be responsible for the attempted coup d'etat in 2016. In line with the impact strategy of the court, our chambers of 7 judges have been examining a large number of complex and sometimes sensitive impact cases during the past year. These cases offer a panorama of the convention and on the way it plays out in practice in the 46 member states. Indeed, cases pertaining to the broader sense, to the protection of democracy and the rule of law are important examples. So are the follow-up cases to the court's Grand Chamber rulings in the 3 climate cases early 2024, and notably in the Verein Klimasenioren judgment. Among recent environmental rulings, one stands out. In Cannavacciolo and others versus Italy, the court found a violation of Article 2, the right to life, through the state's failure to act against systemic large-scale pollutions in areas of Campania region affected by a decade-long large-scale pollution phenomenon known as the Terre dei Fuochi, the land of fires, and stemming from illegal dumping, burying, and/or uncontrolled abandonment of hazardous, special, and urban waste, often carried out by criminal organized groups. For the first time, the court relied on epidemiological studies to establish an imminent risk of life under Article 2. And the judgment also clarified the locus standi criteria set out in Verein Klimasenioren, in the sense that this framing of the locus standi criteria apply only in climate change cases. The effective functioning of the convention system requires judicial dialogue and knowledge sharing. Among the key pillars supporting such dialogue within the convention system are the court's knowledge sharing platform and the Superior Court Network, which celebrates its 10 years anniversary this year. This network, the largest judicial network of its kind in the world, now includes 111 member courts from 46 Council of Member States, along with 5 observer courts, the Court of Justice of the European Union, the Inter-American and the African Human Rights Courts, the Supreme Court of Justice of Mexico, and the Supreme Court of Canada, the latter 2 having joined this year. I should mention here that the court's comparative research will normally be carried out with the assistance of the apex courts of the member states within the framework of the Superior Court Network. This would typically involve a survey of the law and practice of approximately 30 to 40 member states. Involving the apex courts directly in this process provides not only more quality, but also adds to the legitimacy. For the knowledge sharing platform, the highlight of the year was the platform's official launch in February in 3 non-official languages: Romanian, Turkish, and Ukrainian. This high-level event not only marked a major step in the practical implementation of the principle of subsidiarity, but also stood as a model of successful collaboration between the Court, the Council of Europe, and national partners. Work is already underway to expand the platform to additional non-official languages. Over the past year, the Court has continued to engage in judicial dialogue through bilateral meetings with the Court of Justice of the European Union, other international courts, and apex courts across Europe and beyond. In response to the Reykjavik Declaration's call to strengthen institutional dialogue the Court has reinforced its interaction with various Council of Europe bodies. I will highlight here, in particular, reinforced cooperation with the Department of the Execution of Judgment through the Registrar's Dialogue project, aimed at enhancing the work of both entities. Ladies and gentlemen, before turning slightly to the activities of the HELP network, I refer to the fundamental role of lawyers and the key role they play in upholding the rule of law, securing access to justice and ensuring the protection of human rights. Therefore, I cannot but mention the opening for signature on the 13th May this year of the Council of Europe's Convention for the Protection of the Professional Lawyers, which is the first ever international treaty that aims at ensuring better protection of the profession of lawyers and responding to the rising trend of attacks, threats, harassment, intimidation, and improper hindrances they face when performing their professional activities. Turning then to the fourth part of my speech, the HELP activities in the last year. I recall that last year the then President Bosniak praised the HELP team for having been incredibly busy, primarily for the publication of 4 new courses. I'm afraid that this year the team has left me without adequate superlatives, having gone even further by publishing 6 new courses, which will be presented also later on today. But that is not all that the HELP team has in store for us. More help is on its way regarding 2 important topics. A new course on rights in a digital environment is currently under development and will address also a broad range of topical issues such as children's rights, the investigation of cybercrimes, technology-facilitated violence against women, access to justice, etc. Meanwhile, a promising initiative born of the aforementioned institutional dialogue between the Court's registry and the Department of the Execution of Judgments is expected to result in a HELP course on legal remedies for prison conditions. This initiative is particularly noteworthy as it reflects the growing understanding that HELP courses can play a dual role, not only in preventing violations of the Convention, but also in supporting the effective execution of the Court's judgments in line with the Committee of Ministers' guidelines on the prevention and remedying of Convention violation. In addition, the course of anti-discrimination has been updated, and updates are currently underway for a number of other courses equally. I would at this stage like to warmly thank the entire HELP team, as well as my fellow judges and the registry lawyers for their invaluable contributions to the development of these and previous courses. I extend special thanks to you, the members of the HELP network, as well as to HELP tutors who dedicated work in adapting the model courses to national context by enriching them with relevant domestic legal materials and case law, brings them to life and is essential to their success. All of you, through your tireless efforts and commitment to sharing your expertise, not only expand the reach and practical relevance of the Convention, but also actively promote its effective implementation at a national level. By providing high-quality, accessible legal education on an ever-growing range of pressing issues, you help ensure that the Convention remains an accessible, living instrument firmly rooted in domestic legal practice. Dear Chair, ladies and gentlemen, my closing remarks are the following. The European Convention on Human Rights, opened for signature 75 years ago, was an expression of legal humanism, a new beginning after the barbarism of the Second World War and the safeguard against the return of totalitarianism. It has developed and it has matured, but the core remains the same. It was, and it still is, an instrument of peace and stability built on democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. We are the heirs of this remarkable peace project. Today's context, marked by war, democratic backsliding, and other unparalleled trials, underscores its continued relevance and necessity, and reminds us that the struggle to uphold those values and through them secure the lasting peace is never really over. We are, on the contrary, constantly called upon to reaffirm our commitment to our liberal democracies, to reconsolidate the Convention fundamentals as adapted to the times we are currently living through, and as we navigate in unprecedented challenges, to apply the Convention and its values as our compass. And we do all this in recognizing that peace and stability cannot be secured by compromising our shared values, but rather by upholding them with consistency, courage, realism, and resolve. In this effort, the HELP network is important. Training supports the proper implementation of the Convention at the national level, and accordingly, the HELP courses, as a shortcut to Convention literacy, strengthen the Convention impact across domestic legal systems and empower those on the front line of the human rights protection. My warm thanks to all of you and my best wishes for a productive and inspiring conference.
Thank you so much, Vice President Bardson. I was just thinking when I was listening to some of the highlights of the court's, some of the key judgments and the cases that the court is working on. Just to illustrate, I mean, just even those handful of cases illustrate really the breadth and the richness of the court's case law and how the convention system is now such an integral part of our lives. And thank you also for those very, very important and powerful words at the beginning, which really remind us what this is all about. That human rights, rule of law, and democracy are so interlinked. You can't have one of those without the other, and it's essential that we keep saying that in the current climate. And thank you also so much for mentioning the Convention for the Protection of the Profession of Lawyers. I mean, this is really one of the things that has come out of the Directorate of Human Rights of the Council of Europe. One of the things that we're most proud of, it was open for signature in May of this year. We already have 17 signatures. We need 8 ratifications, and I know many of the people in the audience here and online from national bar associations are really kind of promoting that and lobbying for those, so we get the first ratifications and it can start working. So thank you very much, and for your, obviously the court is integral to the whole HELP project. We hope that we help the court and the court helps us, and thank you so much again. Yeah. So now let's... Now, we've been so good on time discipline, actually, we're slightly ahead of time, and we can, Anna Maria, so the very, very hard-working and very engaged and active head of the HELP programme of the Council of Europe, is now going to take the floor to tell us some of the highlights that has been achieved over the past year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire, and good morning also on my behalf. It was truly inspiring to hear the keynote speech of the Vice President. Thank you very much for this. The Convention case law is really the daily bread in the development of HELP courses, and it's something that we keep at the core to draw new topics and to put relevant information and content for legal professionals. So the time has come really to put forward a few highlights that happened in the last year. You're already very much familiar with the HELP program, where it stands, but I think it is worth re-mentioning, and especially since in Reykjavik Declaration that you probably all had a chance to read or saw in the media, this was reaffirmed the need to closen up the ties between standard setting, monitoring, and cooperation, so that the 3 arms, so to say, of the Council of Europe can work together for more impact and for more protection and for more promotion of the rule of law, of democracy, and human rights. So HELP in this regard stands within the cooperation part of the Council of Europe, and we're obviously working on training, which is one of the most effective tools, as you also heard this morning, when it comes to imparting knowledge and developing skills of those that need to take make decisions and to work every day and impact the lives of others at national level. And for this, at the forefront, obviously, we have judges, prosecutors, and lawyers. So they always remain our core audience in all the courses that we developed. But obviously, there are topics where other justice professionals, or even beyond the justice sector, certain professionals like the medical sector, the social sector, become truly relevant because they are also key actors in the human rights protection chain. So in this regard, we continue integrating in the help courses legal content that stands, so includes the Council of Europe framework, obviously, and all the instruments that it has. It has a practical approach meant for practitioners, and it also includes the EU dimension, which is truly important. First of all, for the 27 member states of the Council of Europe who are also EU member states, but also for all the candidate countries and for all the countries that have partnership agreements and that need to also align with the EU legislation and framework. So in this regard, it is truly relevant to keep on this approach of the dual dimension in the courses so that legal professionals have in their training an understanding of the interplay of these two systems at national level. We're obviously also targeting future professionals, so the work with universities has really grew, and it grew without being fed a lot on our side, simply because we do not have a dedicated project. We all try to boost this work through the relationships that we build at national level. A lot of these are built also through you, because many of you and many of your colleagues are also teaching in universities. So you brought help also for students and consolidated this. But obviously, it's a part that needs to be considered, because any future professionals that starts with already a solid and healthy basis of knowledge and understanding of human rights will be a professional that will, by reflex, defend these rights. The elements, I will just mention the network as a crucial part, and today and tomorrow is the event for which we celebrate this relationship that we built over the years with you, with all your institutions, and that we're trying to nurture to make sure that human rights continues to be embedded in the national training curricula. So thank you again for being our ambassadors at national level, for being the ambassadors of finally human rights standards and knowledge, and carrying this onwards to the professionals that you are in charge of training in your countries. When it comes to courses, you will see later on, and we have a session dedicated on the courses that have been published or updated this year. A lot of them are also in the making, so you will see the thematics later on. And then when it comes to methodology, we're always trying to do better, to do more if possible, and to also come towards you with features and from technical to methodological to pedagogical and to content-related issues, to come towards you and to facilitate your work, to really perceive help as a useful resource, as a go-to place for human rights training that you can simply integrate seamlessly in your daily work as decision makers in your respective national judicial training institutions and bar associations. So in this regard, there are examples of flexible, creative approaches to integrating help courses, and we'll see throughout the day and also tomorrow how this has been done in certain countries and by some of you that hopefully will draw inspiration for further application or for new models of approach. Because the help methodology is not set in stone. We propose a model, but this is adapted and is flexible to your needs. The relationship with our partners at the European and international level is obviously crucial. And in this regard, I will mention the steady cooperation that we have with the main networks that also work on training, so the European Judicial Training Network, the CCBE, but also obviously the agencies of the EU that work on specific topic for which they do intervene in the development of courses, and they also also regularly agree to hold session in our launching events. So the colleagues from the Fundamental Rights Agency, the AUAA, the colleagues from the UNHCR office here in Strasbourg, but also field offices whenever we have launches or courses related to migration and asylum, and generally the relationship with the EU, which for us is vital and hugely relevant. In terms of number of users, this was the situation until last year. And you will see also by region, this will be presented later in the sessions that you have, that my colleagues will further on carry with more details regarding to the developments in each of these regions. But you will find probably a number that will not make up mathematically, simply because in between last July and this July, we decided to make finally the use of the platform more relevant and to give accuracy to these numbers. So we actually deleted, with prior notification, of course, inactive accounts, those that have not been on the platform or registered in courses for more than 5 years. We send them notification to ask them if they want to register. Obviously, they keep their account, but those who kept on remaining inactive, we simply deleted them so that we are sure that the numbers that we present are really active users that are enrolled in courses, that are taking courses and making use of the platform in their daily work. So we are now topping at 155,000. We always make up for the almost 30,000 accounts that we deleted. Some of these accounts were also not necessarily because the user was not active. Sometimes there were 2 accounts. People have 2, 3 accounts with different emails. There were also, for instance, candidate or trainee lawyers that had institutional accounts during their traineeship, and afterwards they have another account with their current one. So we tried to clean up a bit the platform to make sure that really those who are there are real persons taking courses. You will also see a correlation, like every time, between the number of pending cases before the European Court of Human Rights and the top use from the HELP platform. That does show that where is a bigger need of human rights training, there is also a bigger demand of human rights training, and it's correspondence. So it also proves to us that things go for the better because people get informed, people get trained on this, so it means that they bring up case law references, they bring up reference to principles and standards in the courts, they resort to them, and they contribute to the future compliance with the convention standard in time. HELP works, obviously, and especially in the cooperation that we have at regional level, works through projects. And for these projects, we are entirely grateful to our donors, to those who support these projects and these interventions. The Help in the EU that has been now already reaching its 5th phase, although it's called Help in the EU 4. It's been over a decade that we are benefiting from the EU support in DG Just with several projects, both regional, so the Help in the EU, but also thematic, with one of them that just finalized last year on judicial training on fundamental rights and rule of law. There have been others on international cooperation in criminal matters, on radicalization prevention, and so on. So for all these projects, made possible the fact that we can actually launch and translate and implement courses in cooperation with you at national level, and also in cross-border format. Then the Help in Western Balkans, which also I think celebrated more than a decade now, with the support from the Human Rights Trust Fund in time, initially Human Rights Trust Fund, then Horizontal Facility, then Human Rights Trust Fund again, and now is through voluntary contribution this year, and we would like to continue this support because it's crucial. It's a regional project that brings a lot of added value, and this was very well reflected in the steering committee, the conclusions and discussions that we had last year, but also with everyday communication that we have with the national and the beneficiaries partners. And Help in Ukraine as well, last but definitely not least, a project that started in unfortunate circumstances. It's the only country-related project that we have. All the others are regional. And it's a project that aims to support legal professionals from Ukraine in their professional and training development when it comes to emerging needs. And in this regard, we will have a session later in which you will hear more details about the data, about the usage of these courses, but also about the courses that have been developed for this purpose on topics that have not, fortunately, have not been a topic, but now they are part of our daily life, like humanitarian law, like deportation and children. So it became a topic that is of everyday concern for all of us in Europe, but especially for Ukrainian legal professionals. So in this regard, these courses have been obviously developed with this purpose, but they have a general scope. So they have been translated in Ukrainian for use in Ukraine, but also in other languages, because standards are universal, and all these aspects are also cross-border related. So in other countries, legal professionals also need to have an understanding of the application of humanitarian law, of the obligations when it comes to the protection of children that have been deported, and so on. And then there are help components in EU-funded programs of a wider scope, and here obviously is the cooperation with in South Mediterranean region and help in Tunisia, which is supported to the South Program 5, and you will also hear later about this data. It comes also from the Council of Europe tendency to also go beyond these borders. And in this regard, because standards have no borders and principles have no borders, it's really appreciated that we can cooperate also beyond and carry these standards in countries that are not part of the Council of Europe, but that do adhere to the principles and standards that the Council of Europe promotes and enshrines. Some links to international and Council of Europe instruments which make the basis for the help courses. Obviously, the core is the European Convention on Human Rights, and the birth of help came because of the need of training on the convention system from a Committee of Ministers recommendation of 2004, then updated in 2019. But for legal professionals, finally, it's important to know the standards holistically. So more and more courses are actually thematic and incorporate, aside from the convention standards and the ECHR case law, all the other conventions and all the other part of the Council of Europe work, such as, for instance, Convention 108 Plus for the data protection course that is actually currently under update, the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime for the course on cybercrime and electronic evidence, and all the conventions related to international cooperation in criminal matters that are part of the course on international cooperation in criminal matters, so the same topic. We also have bridging modules that basically enshrine or include the content of several conventions or several instruments of the Council of Europe. So there is, for instance, the European Social Charter that is very well reflected in the course on labor rights and human rights. Then we have a course on anti-trafficking, but then we have a bridging module on combating trafficking for the purpose of labor exploitation, which is basically, it was developed as a bridging between these two aspects, labor and anti-trafficking, and it also aims to attract professionals from both sides. So the labor inspectors on one side to be more familiar with the anti-trafficking standards and to well identify, and on the other side, those who work on the anti-trafficking area. Same for the violence against women. And then the course that was mentioned already this morning that basically includes three main instruments in an evocative title which is called Interplay, and Introduction to Human Rights Protection in Europe, that addresses the issue of interplay between the European Convention on Human Rights and the European Social Charter on the Council of Europe side, and the European Charter of Fundamental Rights on the EU side, and brings a better understanding of how this system relate to each other and how they need to be taken into consideration and applied at national level. So the challenging courses is exactly this, to bring information that is relevant and from an angle that is relevant to legal professionals. So a short mention about the courses that have been published since we saw each other in this forum last year. Deportation of children during armed conflicts, that was published at the end of last year, and it also had a conference dedicated to the topic. Mental health and human rights, a course that was developed with our colleagues from the bioethics unit. A course that is more of a tutorial on how to use the knowledge sharing platform of the ECHR and the role of this platform that can for legal professionals and how it can be integrated and used in their daily work. Then a course that is inspired by obviously the Lanzarote Convention and also the case law of the European Court of Human Rights, protection of children against sexual exploitation and sexual abuse, in cooperation with our colleagues from the Children's Rights Unit. Cooperation with Pompidou Group gave birth to human rights and drug use, with all the standards enshrined also in the ECHR case law when it comes to these aspects, to the treatment, to the forceful treatment, to all the criminal-related, criminal-related aspects of drug use and drug-related issues. And a course that is available in French for now only, and it's just been published like 2 days ago, I think, or today actually live on the platform. It's a standard. Last year we had another one that was published the night before the conference, so brand new on the platform, Abolition of the Death Penalty, and it comes from the Council of Europe's mandate to also promote the abolition of the death penalty and to engage with countries to make death penalty-free area that would be as wide as possible. So in this regard, in cooperation with our coordinator for the abolition of death penalty and relevant colleagues from the Council of Europe, this course was published, and you will hear later on about it. And then updated course on anti-discrimination that was already mentioned. There are many others in the making. Some have been mentioned. Some you will first now see the titles. So there are a lot of works going on. So rights in the digital environment, a course that is, or a series of modules that is under helping the EU4, so the EU-funded project with the thematic focuses when it comes to digital-related aspects. Then the course that the Vice President of the Court mentioned, legal remedies for prison conditions, stemming from actually the need to find systematic and systemic remedies to systemic problems. And prison condition is one evocatory area in this regard. Then effective communication and legal negotiation skills. It also comes from many discussions with you and the growing interest for soft skills when it comes to legal professionals and the much needed training in this regard. So it's a course that we're also working on and hopefully ready by the end of the year. There are also a series of courses that we are working jointly with the JTN. One was published already, you heard about it last year, Judges Upholding the Rule of Law, that has been also launched under the EU-funded projects twice already. But there are also others that we have in the making, like insolvency and human rights, common digital culture, and so on. Later, the Secretary General of the EGTN will be present also and will mention some of these. And then updates, so the hate crime courts, the business and human rights, data protection and privacy rights, sports, for which we are updating actually one module related to anti-discrimination, and we're adding a module on protection of children in sports, in cooperation with our colleagues from the sports unit. Then cybercrime, where one module is being currently updated, and artificial intelligence and human rights, because the topic demands. Already, we launched it last year, and just days after the conference, we were already in discussions with our colleagues from the CAI Secretariat and from working on artificial intelligence about the need for update. These are the most enrolled courses. The top is pretty much steady with the course on introduction to the human rights, to the European Convention on Human Rights and the European Court of Human Rights. That is still the most successful one, and it's also because it's highly used in universities and it's highly used in initial training for lawyers and for judges and for prosecutors. Some numbers about translations, about enrollments in self-learning, and more of these are actually used and recognized at national level. So the certificates that legal professionals obtain are recognized at national level, and we're really grateful for that. Over 60,000 certificates have been issued since the system allows for issuance of these certificates, making up for almost 500,000 training hours. And this is only for those who completed courses, so we are sure that actually they really spent these hours. But then many practitioners actually go on the platform to simply check something for their daily work and do not necessarily need the certificate. So those who go through courses are much more than 250,000 enrollments, as you can see, because many use it as a working tool. And then in tutored, so the courses that we mostly cooperate with you for launching at national level, but also in cross-border format. These are cumulative numbers, so over 1,000 to date, over 60,000 professionals and students that are enrolled, with a average 76 success rate, and the training hours that are also quite impressive in this regard, knowing that this is usually blended training with face-to-face or synchronous seminars complemented by the online implementation of the course. The number of launches since last year, over 100 since we saw each other in July. Already in 2025, more than 70 courses were launched, with many of you, and in many of you hosted us in your capitals, in your cities, to launch these courses, or sent participants to courses that we launched, for instance, here in Strasbourg. These are some pictures from the event, from various events of these tutored courses launches. And then good practices. There will be more details in the regional achievements session after the coffee break. But just to mention that we keep on promoting the integration of courses in training curricula. So once a course is translated and maybe piloted for a first time with our support, ideally it would be taken up by the regular trainer in the institution and proposed for training, being in preparation for classical training or for workshop, or as follow-up to in-person training. This can also be done. Then there are many launches that are organized by our partners that take up an increasing, let's say, responsibility over the implementation of HELP courses, and extremely grateful for that. As mentioned, statement of accomplishments recognized as training. And then also a session will be held later on the transfer of courses to e-learning platforms of our partners. And this can be done technically now easier, so there will be a short session during this conference, but obviously a dedicated event needs to be done for a thorough understanding of these aspects. And then the work in universities that keeps on growing with colleagues that take it up as part of their keen interest, like Christina, who's mainly in charge of this. But as mentioned, all of us work in this regard, and grateful to you as well to carry onwards the HELP courses in your cooperation with universities in your country. Some information, I'll take it back in the session tomorrow about what's new, but the annual report, again, very fresh, was published yesterday with information up to the end of 2024, and you have the QR code. You can check the data for your country or data for a specific course that you are interested in, and cumulative data up to the end of 2024. Then the HELP newsletter that was sent off last night as well, as a first, with some information about the new courses that were published, the translations that we don't have necessarily time to mention here. So it's useful also to see what new translations have been done in your languages. It's more than 54 have been published this year only. in over 20 languages, and also information about events that took place. And then the LinkedIn page that has been also active for a few months now, and many of you subscribed also through your institutions or through your personal accounts to follow information about justice and human rights training at Council of Europe. So thank you very much for that as well. And the usual catalog of courses that we are promoting and sending and updating regularly with all the new courses, with all the new translations that have been published. And as usual, the team that is behind all this, with the support of the Council of Europe generally. You saw last year, so the team, 2024 was a year of changes. You saw the major changes within the team last year. But then know that also the entire setting of DG1 changed ever since. So you met this morning, and he was here to greet you, our new Director General, Gianluca Esposito, with Claire, the new Director for Human Rights, that kindly also agreed to participate. And you already met her in a different capacity, but you will meet her later chairing the session on Ukraine, our new head of department, Lilia. So the setting in which help function has changed with new zeal, with new energy, and we're really hopeful that it will allow for help to thrive and to have the environment that allows it to carry on its mandate and to achieve its goals in cooperation, obviously, with you. So thank you very much for your attention, but thanks as well for all your cooperation. And I think for this I can conclude.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria. Yeah. I just wanted to say, you know, it's incredible. It's a small team, and it's incredible what you all managed to achieve. And I think we're all really grateful. And maybe we could just have another round of applause for you and your team and the work you've done. Yeah. Thank you very much. So now we've got to the coffee break. Before you head off, so there will be coffee outside. Before you head off, I would invite everyone to come to the main staircase down to the lobby of the Council of Europe, where we'll have a group photo. And then, enjoy your coffee. But then could you be back here in the room for 11:30? Thank you very much, everyone.